Hello and welcome to this episode of Once and Future Parent. Friend, today we're going to be talking about something that is so simple. No one ever discusses this. No one ever argues about it. Everyone's on the same page. How to feed your child. Everything from breastfeeding and formula to what do we do with picky eaters to what happens when the kid wants to go out and get their own food and it's all Doritos all the time. That's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm, of course, here, Matthew, your host, who is currently recovering from pneumonia because it turns out that when you have kids in childcare, they start to pick up all the germs. Everyone starts picking up all the germs. That got real ugly. But we're here with my two awesome co-hosts, if they want to introduce themselves.
I'm Mandy Kaplan, host of Make Me a Nerd, the podcast, and proud mom to a 15-and-a-half-year-old child at whom I'm currently furious. Okay. There, I said it.
Oh dear. That's a story. I want to hear it. I am Pete Wright. I am the other co-host. I am parent to now adult children, Nick and Sophia, and they're out living their lives and doing good work. And I get to be here and just watch.
I am the youngest parent in that regard.
Of
my child is 6 months old and is in daycare, as we discussed. But we're joined by one more guest that I'm really happy about. The joy of the internet means that those people you're friends with in high school don't ever fully disappear from your life. Mara Kaufman is someone I've not actually laid eyes on in probably, I think, 30 years. I don't want to comment on how old we are, but that's about last time we were in each other's presence. But Mara is a great person on Facebook. We've continued to stay friends. And when I started talking about parenting, Mara was someone who often would chime in with some great thoughts and ideas. And so I wanted to bring Mara on for this discussion of food. Mara, how are we doing today?
I'm good. And I'm kind of, as you know, kind of in between with a daughter who is turning 5 in February. So yeah, definitely little, but not as little as yours.
Makes sense. Well, and I will say two other quick, one disclaimer and then one note of introduction. As I joked at the beginning, this is obviously a very controversial topic. There's a lot of people who have very strong opinions. This podcast, as it always is a place for us to explore the questions. There's a lot of places that will tell you have to do this, you have to do that. That's not what we hear about today. Everyone's on their own journey. Everyone's doing it their own way. The only thing we have to...
And the best they can.
And everyone's doing the best they can. And sometimes that means a lot of Doritos, and that's okay too. Especially because I have to realize that my kids only get to eat as healthy as I do, and I still eat a lot of Doritos. But as sometimes these timings happen perfectly, we are just starting our kid on a little teeny bit of not even solid food, but like sauces and stuff. And when I was a young kid, my mother would, as a sign of love, Mara, I don't know if you remember this, but she would often just put out a vat of tomato sauce when I was coming home late. We would have bread and tomato sauce. It was often over for my friends. Last night, I made tomato sauce and got to feed it to my kid, and he absolutely loved it. So that's my kind of teary moment for all of this.
Yeah.
Oh.
So let's kind of start at the beginning. Breastfeeding formula. What are people's experiences? What were people's thoughts?
Mara, would you care to chime in first?
Sure. So my experience was I started out really, really, really wanting to breastfeed and feeling strongly that I wanted that. And I had no clue how hard it was going to be. And I was a little aware that those first however many days, 2-3 days, 4 days, something like that, you had colostrum. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Mm-hmm.
And that it was going to be much less than what one would expect later, and it would look different. So that was okay. And the first time she fed, great. Then for months after that, it was so painful, so hard for her. Our first doctor told us, give up, use formula, and the pumping journey, as Mandy, I think you might have experienced something similar where you're just pumping so much. It was so hard.
Full-time job, yeah.
Totally. And unfortunately, I had a long maternity leave. And then I realized that, or there was a doctor that said my daughter might have a tongue or a lip tie. Well, it turned out she had both. And this is something I didn't know existed
Right.
until we were a few months, maybe 5, 6 months into breastfeeding.
I'll
And
just quick interrupt to say,
sorry.
I'm sure many in our audience, myself included, didn't know it existed until 5 seconds ago. So can you give just a 10-second
Oh, yes,
explanation of what that
totally.
is?
Okay, so there is, and I have a tongue tie, so I can kind of show you. Normal people don't have much of a connection. I mean, everyone has a connection between their tongue and the bottom of their mouth. But people with the tongue or lip tie have this little bit of skin that connects it more than most people. So when I go like that,
Yeah.
there's some skin that I'm kind of.
It's like a webbed, it's like webbing on a duck's toes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, exactly.
And I
And
assume for a
then-
baby, so
Right. Exactly.
And same thing
you
for the lip,
you
too.
pull, you
Right.
Put your finger under the baby's tongue and see, okay, is there this webbing that I can kind of push back and forth? And I just did it on myself. It doesn't hurt. It didn't hurt Kat. Is there this webbing that you can push back and forth under the lip or like under the lip? And this is something a dentist could do, a doctor could do, a parent could do, but we don't know it exists.
Right.
And I was lucky that my supply was big, but I know that's also a challenge for many people. And my personal opinion on breastfeeding versus formula is your child needs to eat. Use what is, and like the parents' happiness and stress levels are more important than do you use breast milk versus formula.
yeah.
So,
Mara, I want to beyond the food thing. You since you mentioned the tongue tie and the lip tie, did you do anything for your kiddo? You had
we
those
had them
snipped.
relax.
That I'm curious what that process was like. Yeah, relaxed, right? I'm curious what that process was like for you. And forgive me, my wife is a speech pathologist, and so we have run into this conversation a number of times. How did that go for your kiddo? Because I know there's a lot that goes into it.
It was the dentist that did it. Didn't take insurance, though really it should be covered by insurance, but man, we live in the US, so
Should be.
and he said it was an in-office procedure, that I should not be in the room for it, because she would cry, and she did. And there are these exercises we
True.
had to do afterwards that was very, so yes, she cried, but then later that day she was fine. Not any more fussy than normal. And she's wasn't a particularly fussy baby, thank goodness. But then the exercises, she hated them with a passion.
Yeah.
But we knew that she was now able to breastfeed without problems. And she was finally eating. She was finally gaining weight. And she had no interest in a bottle at that point. Like in the beginning she did. So the relaxation, like the big part was the exercises. And
Well, and the exercise, I mean, how do you make a kiddo do exercises who's still breastfeeding? Like, they're not, like, how much control do you have over that? And those exercises are hugely important, because if you don't do them, then the skin will heal and create scar tissue and be worse than before you had the process done. So I'm just like, how do you get a kiddo so young
well, the thing
to be doing those exercises?
With them being that young, it's not getting them to do it. It's more the parent emotionally stealing yourself. Yeah, they're not doing it themselves. They cannot physically do what's needed with their fingers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
You're moving their lip around and moving their tongue around.
You're doing
and
it.
Doing
and
that for them.
You're emotionally dealing with the crying. Sometimes you have both parents in there helping, one like comforting the child while the other one's doing the exercises. So it's a challenge, but the parents are the ones doing the exercises to the child, so that
Yeah. I imagine just the act of breastfeeding post procedure is an exercise in and of itself for the kiddo, because now their mouth is moving in all kinds of new ways.
It
that they
wasn't
couldn't
actually
before.
that bad. I mean, she was 6 months. Now she's
Yeah.
almost 5. So maybe my memory has gotten a little hazy, but I remember
Yeah.
it was within like a week or two where she had totally relearned how to use her mouth. And it was
Yeah.
such a
Yeah.
relief.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, and I think
Oh,
it's really
that's
telling
fantastic.
that, as you said, people don't know about this. We, in the getting ready for the birth, we did a lot of research, read a lot of different things, and we read so much about feeding. And there were so many different things about here's, this reason or that reason why a baby might have trouble latching or have trouble. And that was never mentioned. Never heard of that. So our own journey, I think I may have mentioned this a bit before, so I'll make it kind of brief, but we decided from the beginning that we didn't want Mary to have to deal with all the middle of the night feedings. In part because of some mental health stuff, when I'm asleep, I am dead to the world and I'm not going to be able to wake up. So we kind of slept in shifts and stuff like that. And so once we knew that if Mary wasn't going to wake up every time the kid wanted feeding, we had to not just do breastfeeding. So we got started out from day one in the hospital doing a mix of both breastfeeding and formula. Mary tried pumping for a while, was not getting much, and I think we just kind of eventually weaned off. And probably by about 2-3 months, more like 3 to 4 months, we were pretty much formula only. It's worked great. Baby's still gaining weight. Baby's doing well. So that's been how it's been for us.
Yeah. And that's what's important, the gaining weight, doing well, and yeah.
Well, a different aspect of feeding that I'll put in, because Mara and I seem to have similar breastfeeding journeys, and Mary too. But as Casey got older and eating became his choice, when and how much and what he liked and didn't like, moderation was so important. And I think I've talked about on the podcast that my family had no junk food in our house. None. Zero. So I had a very unhealthy relationship. And when I would go to friends' houses, I would gorge myself on Oreos and Doritos because I didn't have access to those. And we really believed, and turns out we were right so far. We've had stuff in the house. Casey's allowed to have Oreos or Doritos, but he knows moderation. He understands it's not with every meal or all the time or in replacement of food. And my mom tells this story. He was about 3 and we were visiting the East Coast, and she said, Casey, let's go for ice cream. And he said, oh, that's okay. I had cookies at lunch, so I can't have ice cream now. And I was so proud of him. Of course, he could have gone for ice cream.
Right.
That's fine. But she thought, who is this kid? Like, what kid says no to ice cream? But he really understands to this day what it is to have moderation and, treat yourself sometimes.
Yeah.
So, okay, now I'm not mad at him anymore. Damn it.
You can still hold 2 complex feelings, Mandy. Keep that rage. Keep the anger.
Yeah. I was going to say,
He's
Mandy,
a good
don't
kid
worry.
that you can be
I'm
mad
sure
at.
he'll give you something else to be mad at pretty soon.
It's just his room, you guys. Oh, okay.
Well, and I definitely want to get into like when they start with solid foods and all that kind of stuff. But Pete, just from you, where were you guys with breastfeeding and formula and all that?
Breastfeeding, we had success with breastfeeding and pumping and everything, and so we didn't end up introducing formula. We went from breastfeeding to introducing solid food, and we did we made our own. We did a lot of blender work. Earliest foods were like we would blend up kale and squash and things like that and make little ice cubes that we would kind of serve one ice cube at a time. It was, I'm in Portland, y'all, like this is just what we do. And so, as a result, I think, some of the kids' favorite foods are like
Casey's first
sprouts,
was lard, just
weird
spoonfuls of lard.
For me.
That's how we rolled.
His first was oatmeal.
That's outstanding.
So,
Yeah. So, all of that is like, just sort of, the spectrum is very broad. And so when we look at, how the kids relate to sweets and things, they have, I think, a pretty good relationship to it. Although my son in college, in the parking lot of his apartment is a Dutch Bros.
Yeah.
And that's not great for the finances or the caloric and sugar
What is Dutch
intake.
Bros?
I mean, it's not great. And I think that's...
Oh,
Dutch
We
Bros
don't.
coffee? Do you not have Dutch Bros? It's like Starbucks, but just
okay.
only more sugar and flavor, right?
Pete,
It's
you sometimes
just
forget, I think,
super
that you live in the
intense,
Pacific Northwest, which is the one area that the Starbucks colonization has not fully taken over yet. So
The Starbucks colonization. Here I am, like a couple
Yeah.
of hours
Wow.
from Starbucks number one. Like I know, I am the Starbucks industrial
so I just want to
complex.
ask one last question on the breastfeeding
so,
thing before,
yeah.
and there's so much to talk about with solid food and stuff. Why do you guys think this is such an issue that so many people, the opinions get so strong about? And we were pretty lucky. We isolated ourselves from it. But, I've heard so many horror stories of people, at moms groups or anything like that, where the judgment just gets so strong about you have to do it this way, you have to do it that way. Why do you think this happened? What is it about this particular issue that becomes so controversial?
I think it has to start from, I'm quite cynical about this. There's some industry that, the pump industry and the the bras, why can't I think of what it is? Breastfeeding bras.
Oh, the nursing bras.
Yeah, nursing. Thank you, Mara.
Nursing bras,
they started planting fear, and so much of parenting is fear. And my baby will be at a disadvantage. They won't have an immune system. They won't be smart if I don't breastfeed. That's the messages I was receiving, and I could not breastfeed, and I desperately tried. And I would read on, how do I say this nicely? This evil cult's website called the Booby Brigade.
Oh, God.
And they would shame people who couldn't breastfeed. And, you would write in for help and you would get one kind, understanding person who was like, try this or maybe, whatever. And then it was just attack.
Oh,
And
awful.
I would just stay up all night sobbing at my computer because I was failing. Obviously, I didn't care about my child if I was using any formula. But I do think it comes from business to start.
So it's interesting because back when I was doing advanced analytics, a long time ago, like over a decade ago, one of my clients was an instant formula provider. So did formula, and they were required to say in their own advertisements, if you can't breastfeed, then use our brand.
Right.
So it was it looked like a advertisement for nursing and breastfeeding when it was actually an advertisement for formula, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that they were legally required to do that. So, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of pressure to continue.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, there is, and I didn't have the personal experience with it, but I know that there is in our circles, our kind of early parent circles, there was a real, you could feel it when the moms who were struggling to breastfeed took a very personal shame in the fact that they were feeling broken. Those messages were so loud and so judgmental, right? The way they would talk about themselves and their bodies and their relationship with their kiddo, that was just foundationally, they were foundationally wrong somehow. What right did they have to be a mom when they couldn't do this thing? It was supposed to be so natural and perfect and instantaneous.
Breastfeeding moms would talk about, it's magical. Yeah. It's our bonding time. Mm-hmm. This is how I feel so close to my baby. And I would sit there and think, I'm close to my baby. I love my baby. I'm just broken and I can't do this. It was a brutal time until my wonderful pediatrician asked Jeremy to take Casey out of the room, and she sat with me and she was like, stop. I need you to stop. I need you to switch to a formula, give it up. because Mara said it earlier, your mental health
Yeah.
is much more important
Yeah.
than squeezing an ounce of milk every
Right.
2 days or whatever. But I was
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
violently depressed over it.
Yeah.
And she picked up on that and was like,
Yeah.
doctor's orders,
Yeah.
like, just stop.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
phenomenal that your pediatrician did that.
She's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The weird thing is La Leche
Yeah.
League, which is specifically for people who are trying to breastfeed. And they were so like, whenever your journey ends, it's up to you. If it ends at 1 month because it's so painful, you're getting so little out, that's fine. If it ends at 5 years, that's fine. And just so accepting. And I wish that people were hearing more about Leche League and less of like that group that you had found.
Well, it's also who's speaking up. It's whoever answers that post, right?
Yeah.
And I would post, I'm having trouble. Does
Yeah.
anybody have any advice? And you would it's just
Yeah.
whatever dick in a typewriter or in a computer would answer that would make me
Yeah.
cry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
It can happen. It happened on the
Right.
Leche League too, to be honest. I was
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So I guess
seeking all help. And
I've definitely heard some real horror stories about La Leche League,
Yeah.
and so I think it's kind of very regional. So, Mara, I'm glad you had much better experience with them.
yes.
yeah, their Facebook group, like during the pandemic, because pandemic, I couldn't go to anything in person, which drove me absolutely bonkers. Because like going through this and with the breastfeeding, like I couldn't attend the groups, and then even the virtual groups, it was like, okay, yeah, I could, but trying to be virtual and breastfeeding at the same time, I was like,
Right. Well, and just to highlight one other aspect of it, Pete, that I'm curious if you went through, and I want to be very clear, Mara and Mandy, I think what you guys are talking about should be the very center of this conversation for sure. But I'll also say, hearing all that same talk that was being directed to Mary about you were going to have this magical, incredible experience, I felt incredibly jealous. I felt like there's a real, and I'll, and there were definitely some times when he wanted breast milk, not bottle. And that was really hard. And Pete, I'm curious if you ever, and definitely there were the flip times. Sometimes the bottle was easier and we worked through it and all that kind of stuff. But Pete, I'm curious for you, did you have any of that kind of like feeling left out or pushed out of these conversations when it was about the magical connection is the breastfeeding, and that's where all the parental love is?
I will say early on, I totally relate to that, Matthew, because once there's the pregnancy and birth is just very mother centric biologically, right? It has to be, and there is an expectation. For me, there was an expectation that once the baby was here, that things would even out. It just took
Right.
a really long time for things to even out because of the whole process. Now, like we've been supporting the pregnancy and supporting mom through delivering the baby, and now it's here. And now, do I get a turn? And the answer is, at least in the beginning, not yet. You don't get the turn yet to be the image of the dad that you have, going into this journey of parenthood. It takes a little while for all of those feelings to kind of normalize and realize, oh, the stuff that I contribute is very different and it's okay. And we're going to have, those relationships are going to swing back and forth for decades to come. And in the first 4 weeks, 6 months, it's just a matter of patience. But when you're sitting there watching it happen, oh my gosh, yeah, it feels like you're being kicked out of a very important conversation that should involve you. You feel like it should involve you, and it just
so
it doesn't
being
yet,
a little
not in that way.
closer and from the mom's perspective, I wish that, like, and I love my husband, he's amazing, but I wanted him to be fully there and take more time. But he felt very much like he needed to go back to work sooner. And there is important stuff for the dad to contribute in those first few weeks and those first few months that, you can't produce breast milk, but there's so much else, like holding the baby, changing the baby, spending time just like looking in the baby's eyes and like, yeah,
just rocking the baby, just like stand up and rock the baby and hold it close to you. I mean, those are some of my most precious memories of just experiencing touch. And I think I was I at the risk of being very starved for that, was aggressive as an early dad. Like, just give me the kid. Just give me the kid. Is not actively eating. And like I said, I mean, we were the pumping industrial complex at our place. We were very lucky that the production was very high. And so I was doing a lot of bottle feeding of breast milk from very early on in the process. And I feel very, very grateful for that experience. I know I
think it's important to talk about that and finding, because I think that conversation can easily become a like, oh, poor us men, and I think that's not what this should be in the slightest. But especially when remembering that like there are parents where there isn't a person who can breastfeed in the in the case, single fathers raising a kid, or when two men or two male-bodied people or whatever it is adopt kids from birth. So. Anyway, all right. So now we can start talking about...
Wait. Okay. One more thing before we go off of breastfeeding, because I think this is really important for moms who want to breastfeed to know that, like, when I was pregnant, I thought, oh, it's going to be easy. And I think for so many women, it's not. Like, having a lactation consultant, my mom breastfed, but having somebody who can, like, help you in your journey, if you're just going through it by yourself, it's... even like going through it with a mom or a one other woman who did it, like there's so many potential things that can stop your journey and make you feel like Mandy feels not enough. It's much harder. Like, I don't, just to be aware, if it's hard for you, you are not alone. There's so many women where it's hard, and it's individual choice.
It's crazy that it's that hard, because you think this has been how it's been since the dawn of time. That a woman just breastfed her baby. Why?
Yeah.
I mean, literally billions of people have done this.
Right.
Why am I not able to do this? And it's astounding.
Yeah, and I think it's hard because the infant has to learn. It's not something like, the first time, but then it's not. It's still a learning curve for the mom and the child, or the breastfeeding parent and the child. So, sorry, I'll get off my soapbox on that.
No, this episode is all about these soapboxes, so that's why I wanted to have the conversation. Because it is. I mean, like, and I'll give one more part of the rant of it, that I think part of why you're right, Mandy, it's so hard is because the people who have been in power for most of the time aren't the ones breastfeeding and aren't around it and don't care.
Yeah, right.
And like, to me, one thing I think is such a fascinating and horrible dichotomy that we have is that on the one hand we if you go on Twitter, there are two main conversations that happen around breastfeeding or any kind of social media. One is all of the stuff we're talking about it's the most magical thing in the world, it's the most important thing in the world, all breastfeeding is great, but by the way, don't do it at the office. Don't do it in public. Don't, and
that's
always
indecent. Yeah.
Right. And to me, that's such a weird double thing. It's like society on the one hand is saying you have to do it. It's so important, but also go be back in your home and barefoot while you're doing it, because, don't bring it in the public sphere.
Don't take your baby in public to, once I was back at work and taking my daughter back and forth, if she was hungry on the subway, it was like, do I have to wait till we get home to feed her? My daughter is starving. She needs food. And I'm going to nurse her. I'm going to try to like hide myself while I do it. But if people stare at me, my daughter's need for food is more important than some guy ogling me. Like, I'm going to deal with the ogling because she needs food. But I shouldn't have to. I shouldn't have to wear a nursing cover and have her head under a blanket. But sorry.
Yeah. No. It needed. So with that, now that we've solved all those issues, we start moving towards solid food, and obviously we're just at the start of that journey, and I know there's a lot of mush and a lot of blenders in my future. We are very much at the point of we're putting like smushed up carrots and stuff like that in front of him, and if 10% of it winds up in his mouth and 90% of it winds up on the floor, well, that's better than when it was
Normal.
95% 5%. What for you guys was that journey like in terms of like when you first started moving towards solid foods and off the bottle?
Well, I have a question for you, Matthew, first.
Sure.
Did you get advice about whether to start with something sweet like apples or squash and then move to things like green beans, or was it the reverse? Because I've heard both philosophies.
No, and we're kind of still in the we feel like we're kind of in the prologue to really actually starting solid food. Because right now, one of the things we were told was that is that when he can fully sit up by himself,
Yes.
and like keep
Yeah.
his neck straight, and he can
Yeah.
do that for like a couple seconds at a time. So we're still kind of at that where we have a doctor's appointment coming up next week, at which we're going to go our 6-month appointment. Which we're going to go. Okay, I think we're ready to start solid foods. I think we're ready to start sleep training. That's a whole other issue that we're dealing
Yep.
with for another episode. But right now it's more about just giving him tastes of things, and where
Yeah.
it's really kind of a liquid. So it's
Yeah.
like, put our finger in a little bit of some sauce and let
Tomato
him like
sauce,
taste
right.
it.
Right.
He much to as I said, tomato sauce he loves, buffalo sauce, even some spicy things he seems pretty good with. It was what was there?
Buffalo sauce.
Yeah.
Like wing
Well,
sauce.
Well, you know what we're
are we
doing? We're
right
putting
now?
down $5 to see what this kid will eat. And
Yeah.
we're
Look,
making a little
look.
money on the side.
I'm
Right?
in the Midwest, and so I'm going to have to fight the fight to make sure that my kid doesn't think that ranch dressing is the height of spiciness. So, I'm fighting the good fight out here.
That's true.
But yeah, no, we hadn't heard that about
Okay.
sweet stuff. I think we'll definitely, probably try, things like that too. But mostly I think we're gonna talk to the doctor next week and do some research, and then probably start it a little more, specifically where we're trying
Right.
to actually make sure he's getting some nutrition from solid food beyond just bottles.
When you asked about sweet stuff, Mandy, that reminded me that something I heard when I was pregnant, and people watching this probably, I mean, maybe they're pregnant, maybe they're not, but probably not. But if the people watching this are pregnant, something I heard was that the taste in food can start when the child's pregnant. Like your cravings might have to do with their taste in food later. Like I was craving a ton of seltzer, and my daughter adores seltzer. And most women crave chocolate at some point, but she loves chocolate. And so, but also with breastfeeding, that if you're breastfeeding, then what you're eating that might also influence their taste in food. So the sweet question just kind of reminded me that.
Yeah.
Well, our brilliant pediatrician said start with a little sweet. So, and full disclosure, we did not make our own food. I was working, we were both working full time. My husband was working nights and sleeping during the day. It was untenable to make our own food. So we bought little jars, and we started with like squash, which is sweet, and maybe apple, which is sweet. And she said that'll getting them used to eating, and then introduce the green beans. And I will never forget the first, he took a little spoon of the green beans, and he looked like I lit him on fire. Like the rage on his face was like, how could you do this to me? I will never forgive you. Because he had, so I actually think the other philosophy might be more helpful. Start with green beans, get them used to
Right.
it, then lead up to the squash and the apples, which are easier to, more palatable, I guess.
Well, and I'll say for me, this is a very complex journey because I've had a very complex and at times fairly unhealthy relationship with my own eating and food. And I'm not going to turn this into my own therapy session, but I'll kind of tell this bit of the story to let other people jump in and talk about where they've been with it themselves. I was a very picky eater as a kid. A lot of this, I think, was, autism wasn't being well diagnosed these days, and other mental stuff like that. But I was very picky. For a while, my mother joked that I was a starchitarian, or that I don't eat white foods like potatoes or white bread or things like that. And I've never been someone who ate their vegetables very much. I now kind of eat a lot of salads and green and bell peppers and stuff like that, but it's very rare that broccoli or Brussels sprouts is going to pass my lips. And so that's one part of it. The other part of it is, and it took me a while to figure this out, but I'm someone who, I think I've mentioned before, there's a lot of alcoholism in my family, and I've always managed to not go there. And I've always kind of had this like part of me when I'm upset that really wanted a drink. And I would often congratulate myself that I was not having the drink that I desperately wanted. And it took me a while to realize that I was always doing that congratulation for not having a drink as I was scarfing down McDonald's French fries or Doritos, because I self-medicated with food and have been really and I'm now, weight loss and all that thing is a whole other very complicated topic that I'm not even going to get into. But I've been realizing like I have a lot of kind of like my own hang-ups and stuff like that. Fast forward to, I know that there's so much research out there that is like, part of the problem is that I didn't get a lot of vegetables early on. And not blaming anyone, it's my own, whatever it is, but like that the earlier you start kids on this wide variety of things, the less likely they are to be picky eaters, the more likely they are to be healthy eaters. And coming to realizations of that, but like also, realizing like if my kids can eat a lot healthier, then I probably have to eat a lot healthier. And even like the amount of times that, like when my kid is upset, I know the way to help them often is just put a bottle in their mouth. And I'll joke in my head of, oh, they're emotional eater just like I am. And I know it's a completely different thing, but all that's in my head with it. So I'm just I'm throwing all that there to kind of let you all, however you want to run with it, just talk about like, how has your own emotional journeys with eating, either healthy or not healthy, been a part of this and your kids starting to eat?
So I'm glad you brought up your own journey, because something that was very important to me, because like a lot of girls, a lot of women, my relationship with food was complicated, as Matt, you might remember. And something that's very important to me is that Katniss, my daughter, does not have the kind of relationship with food that I had for so many years, that she feels she can eat when she needs to, but that she doesn't turn to food as medication, as sometimes like you're upset, you go grab a pint of ice cream, you go back, grab a thing of chocolate. Like I wanted her go-tos for when she's upset to be like not a substance, be it food or anything else. So like we don't force her to finish her food. We never have. And we don't we ask her to listen to her body around food a lot. And that's been the case since she was able to speak and understand at all. So, and we started her on, I think broccoli was something she was having definitely before she was a year old, but I think that was one of the first foods we sent in. So.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
We definitely started with the dark greens too, just realizing my wife has no trouble with food at all. I have had a complicated relationship, but I just want to make one comment, which I think is right on, when you say, Matthew, that if my kiddo's going to be eating a diet of greater variety, I'm probably going to have to do that too. I found I was stubborn at first about doing the things that my kid was doing for my kid. I was like, well, I can do it for the kid, but I surely don't have to do it. I'm a grown man. I can eat McDonald's fries if I want. I don't have to be a role model. But you know what? It turns out externalizing that motivation and doing the right thing for your kid is a really great way to learn to do new things that you have constantly had trouble doing. For me, my relationship with fitness has been just awful. But how can I say, kid, you got to go sign up for a sport. You need to be on a team. You need to swim. You need to do something because it's good for your body and your brain and your energy. And how can I do that if I'm not going to the gym? If I'm just eating just the fries and not using that as an excuse to change my life a little bit too. That has been one of the greatest virtuous cycles for me as an adult, is being able to look at my kid and kick my own inner child who's a dick off my back. And do the right thing, even if it's not from an intrinsic motivation at first. It's extrinsic. It's like, I want my kid to see me doing something important for myself, and that means trying a wider variety of foods. It means introducing more things that are green and colorful than I would naturally if I was still living in that dirty old apartment in Mountain View, California, as a 20-something. It's okay and positive and good and makes everybody stronger as a result.
Kids learn by example. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, they also don't learn everything from us. And
Right.
it's upsetting to think that we were very careful as a person with a troubled relationship with food and body image. I was very careful to never say that's fattening or, cookies will make you fat. We never used that language. We were really good about moderation and health and variety. And then your kid goes to school and other kids are saying, that's going to make you fat. You can't have donuts. Donuts make you fat. And Casey learned a lot of very unhealthy self-talk from being online, being with friends, and it's shocking to know that he's having body image issues or dysmorphia. And it really, I don't think, came from my husband and me. It came from the mean streets of Porter Ranch, California, where he's, that it's inevitable. We can only do so much. We can set them up with a great foundation and send them out in the world, and then the world is going to kick the shit out of them.
We are not their only examples.
Yeah.
Right.
And this is one thing that, like, the internet has made demonstrably far, far worse. This is an extreme example, but, I was reading recently about, online communities that where what, everyone else would consider, eating disorders of some kind are looked at as like real praise things. And like people are bragging about just how small their waists can become and things like this. And that is a very, very complicated issue that I don't want to touch, paint in black and white terms by any means. But it to me is one more sign of like, people will, it's one thing to be, getting these messages from the kids you're like having real life experiences with, but also when there's so much YouTube content out there aimed at, this is what your body needs to look at, whether it's either you have to be this small or you have to be this curvy or you have to have all these muscles or whatever, in any body direction it can go. And I really love that idea of because even when I was talking about it, like, I don't think McDonald's French fries is like bad and wrong and evil. And I don't think that, like, I'm never going to be the person who eats only vegetables. I'm going to love my Doritos. And I never, for myself, in a weird way, being an amputee makes this a little easier because I had my amputation, my prosthetic does not fit if my BMI is over a certain level. And so there's a distinct medical reason why it makes sense for me to try to lose weight. Yeah. But in the culture we have, where there's so much fat shaming and all that, any of these conversations, so Mandy, I love what you're talking about how do you frame conversations of, hey, maybe you don't want to have too much of this or that, but without it being because it's fattening, because it's bad, because, all the like ideas of like cheat days and like this food being my sin or whatever. How do we avoid all that? Mara, go ahead.
So, I know TV is a whole other topic that I'm not getting into, but there is an episode of, what is it? I can't believe I'm blanking on it, but where one of the main characters eats too much candy and has a tummy ache. And it's clearly stated multiple times that the tummy ache is because there was too much candy. Not that eating the candy was wrong, but having so much that it hurt your tummy was why the tummy was in pain. And I wish I was remembering which TV show it was. It's Miss Piggy, but it was the kids version, and Kermit
Muppet
and
Babies.
Muppet Babies.
Muppet Babies, yes. Animal was the one who ate too much
Of
candy.
course he did. That's so animal.
So
Yeah.
animal.
Oh,
Classic.
phenomena.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we talk about that in our house, like that having a piece or two of candy is okay, but you don't want to have so much that your tummy hurts. And how much you have will depend on what type you have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I really love also what you said about like learning to listen to your body's cues of when you're hungry and when you're not. Because, and Pete, I'm actually curious if this is something you guys have ever explored on your awesome ADHD podcast, which, by the way, I highly recommend people check out. Because one thing I realized was that for me, food was, among other things, a way of stimming. If I was sitting in an office and I was bored out of my mind, if I just could have, and I would often pick what to eat based on how many bites it would give me. Because if it was a sandwich, then I maybe only have 4 stim moments of bites. But if it was a pasta dish or something, then I could have 20. Is that something you guys have explored in terms of like food as a kind of stimming and how that can be?
Well, I have to admit, I have never heard the bite accounting in such a way. That is delightful, and I'm going to be stealing that.
Please do.
But absolutely, because, I mean, eating, the experience of eating is a dopamine numbing agent, right? I mean, it's like it gives you that act of that feeling of, right, all of the firecrackers that you need in your brain, and so, yeah, I mean, that's part of the unhealthy part of the relationship with food, is eating for reasons that are not real, right? It's not that they're the wrong reasons, but they're not real reasons. You're not eating for sustenance and hunger. You're eating for some other purpose. And what sort of replacement activities can you put into play to help you, address that immediate cognitive need that you're masking with eating? And I say that because I do it absolutely too.
Yeah.
And it's been a lifetime of that kind of relationship with food and my brain. Mara, you were gonna say something.
I have a suggestion for that, because I also like to just kind of eat and take lots of bites of things. And when I'm being more mindful, more aware of food, then chewing gum was something that I tried in high school and college and early 20s about that gave that sensation of chewing and wanting to take lots of bites, but not having any content. And lately, things like, okay, if I am just in the mood to snack, can I snack on something like cucumbers, which are like 10 calories for a mini cucumber? Or I know for Matthew, that's not going to work for you. But like,
grapes are a huge win for me.
Yeah.
Grapes have been a replacement food for me.
Frozen
that really
grapes.
works. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and I've definitely
Big
found
treat.
that chewing gum, and the joke in our house is, I mean, I'm a grumpy old man in many ways. I'm not even a man. I'm non-binary, but I'm definitely the grumpy old person. And one thing I've found that, it has a little more content than gum, but not many. I'm now a Werther's caramel guy.
Werther's caramel.
So I'm embracing my senior citizenness 20 years early, because again, it's something to have in your mouth.
You put that in your mouth and they'll last a long time.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get an
that-
afternoon out of those puppies.
Get
They're
a
also
sensation.
good. You're
Yeah.
saying
Yeah.
it like it's not good. They're good.
No, it's good because it
yeah.
lasts. It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you don't have to
They're
eat many
delicious
of them.
too.
So we're almost at an hour, Mandy. I know you need to go very soon, and I don't want to keep everyone else too long either. Let me kind of throw one last topic out, which is allergies. Have any of you seen the Canadian TV show The Yard? It's a fantastic show. Most people have never heard of. It's on YouTube or Hulu, I think. It's definitely worth a watch. It's only like 8 episodes. But it basically takes the model of Oz, about like a kind of mock documentary about a prison, but makes it about a middle school schoolyard. And it's all about like the different power gangs and like the economy of Pokemon cards and stuff like that. But one episode is all about the kind of like the equivalent of smuggling drugs into the school, into the prison, which is smuggling peanut butter sandwiches in. Which of course we could freely do in my day, but I know now is, and so I'm kind of curious,
Yeah.
you guys, either
That's
with your own
outstanding.
kids or just dealing with friends and stuff, allergens and what foods can or cannot be brought into school or, had at playtime is such a controversial issue as well. I've not had to deal with it, but if for any of you guys, how has that come up or not come up?
Well, I will say, we never had any allergies in our house to food. We never had any peanuts, no citrus, no nothing. And so, I mean, there is, I don't know, I'm not a scientist, but my understanding is that the greater variety of foods that you introduce to the kiddos early on, the less likely they are to establish.
I've heard that too.
Yeah. So, whatever your current take is on that. But I will say my kids went to a small school with small classes, and the impact of one kid with a severe allergy is non-trivial, because just like messages get passed around and the sort of social media messages and the things that kids believe, you know what else does? Food. Kids pass food around from their lunchboxes. And if one kid is highly allergic to peanut butter, if they aren't like really zealous, my goodness, it is really hard to monitor that and make sure that every family, every kid is as zealous as the one who can be very, very damaged, and be respectful of that.
In New York City, at least the preschool my daughter goes to, we are not allowed to bring in anything with peanut butter. Like, it's just not allowed. And one of the schools we're looking at for her for like kindergarten through maybe even 12th grade, they have a separate lunch table for the kids who bring in anything with peanut butter. So and my daughter wants to share, but she's not allowed to share food at lunch because of that.
Yep. But it's so funny, like, because we had the same thing. Kids were not allowed to share. They were monitored, and yet they share anyway. They pocket food. They pocket candy. The kids are little criminals when it comes to food. And so.
Like I'm saying, I'll definitely share a link to How to Watch the Yard, because this one
please.
episode alone is just, there's a whole thing about also like, smuggling EpiPens, to be responsible peanut dealers and things like that.
Totally. And that's it. That's the reality of it for us.
Yeah.
It's funny.
So, it's funny because, we certainly didn't have that when I was a kid. And I think it would be easy to be like, well, why are kids so soft today? The reality is probably the kids who had those allergies just were getting really sick and having terrible things happen, or were staying home. And in a way, there's something to me really beautiful and a very powerful lesson for kids to learn, of that kind of like, hey, one of our group has this thing, so all of us are going to work to help keep that person safe. Like, that's an amazing lesson for kids to learn. And I just hope it can be framed more that way, instead of the grumpy old people of like, oh, we didn't in my day have to.
Well,
do
you
this
know what it is, Matthew. I mean, for our oldest's class, it was when that one kid actually ingested some peanut butter and had a horrible reaction, and ambulances came, and the kiddo was fine, but the rest of the class witnessed that, and the entire dynamic changed.
I'm so glad it changed. I'm so sorry that it took that to change it. And I think schools are a little, or at least the schools that we're looking at, are a little more aware now. And like, they have a list of like what kids are allergic to. And I'm lucky Katniss doesn't have allergies. But my husband has food allergies to like banana and all the tree nuts, not peanuts, but everything else. And there's so many kids with gluten allergies these days. And I think also part of it is that food now has so much stuff in it that it didn't before, and that like with different proteins, there's all this stuff in it, and that's like a whole other topic we don't have time for, but that's a factor with food these days. That and no judgment, like I go for the cheapest a lot too, because I mean, cost is a factor. I mean, grocery prices have increased so much.
Oh yeah, we're not even going to get into the like feed your kids all organic.
Yeah,
because there's so much privilege in those conversations.
Totally,
all that.
Yeah, I don't want to go there.
Well, this has been fantastic. Mara, I want to give you a chance. Are there any other last things you want to say on this topic before we wrap up?
I just want to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to be honest and to share my views. And
Yeah, our pleasure. Well, and I know you are often at this point, we give people a chance to kind of promote other stuff they're doing. And I believe you are just getting a business going on that you might want to speak about.
yes, thank you. So I, in 2025, shifted careers to being a coach and an astrologer, and I do some parenting coaching, and I'm not perfect by a long shot, but I do work with parents, and I work with couples, and I work with singles who want to find that person. And the astrology isn't really this topic, but something I adore, and there's free mini readings that are available, and I can give you guys the link to the discovery call that has that if you want to include it in the links.
If you want to tell us the website, but also we'll definitely put it in the show notes.
Okay, so it's actually a Calendly link, so it's easier to just click.
Sure.
So, and my socials, both Facebook and LinkedIn, I'm Mara Kaufman, so easy to find. And then I have extremely long red hair. So on Instagram, I'm still Mara with the long red hair. So.
That has not changed since I've known you. So
Sure.
That's funny.
I love that. And Pete, we mentioned the ADHD podcast. Tell us a little more about that and where people can find
the
it.
ADHD podcast with my hosting partner over there, ADHD coach Nikki Kinzer. You can find it over we just search for Taking Control, the ADHD podcast. You can find it in all the podcast apps, and it's a show that's been going on for 15 years. We've got a real catalog of ADHD experts, practitioners, therapists, researchers, all helping adults and older students learn to live more completely in their own skin with their ADHD.
Yeah.
So we're very proud of that show.
It is a wonderful podcast. It has helped me so much. I will say their standards for guests have been slipping a little bit because they did let
you on.
But mostly they do have lots of great experts and stuff like that. I, of course, am the Ethical Panda. You can find more of my stuff at theethicalpanda.com. There you'll find my other two podcasts, Superhero Ethics and Star Wars Generations. A lot of great stuff there, including a lot of stuff for we've done some great episodes with kids as guests, and also about like how to introduce your kids to these kind of topics. So definitely check all that out. Of course, all of these are part of the True Story FM family of podcasts, truestory.fm. That's where you can find all the things Pete does, all the stuff that I do. On behalf of myself, Mara, and Pete, thank you all so much for listening. The force be with you.
Can I add one more thing? I'm sorry.
Please do.
So something else I kind of love to do is astrology for giving parents readings for their babies and their kids, and actually took a class in doing that. So there's a methodology as well as so it's one of my areas.
Definitely. Yeah, that sounds like a great thing. So for new parents, older parents, anyone who wants to check it out, definitely all that information will be in the show notes. So on behalf of myself, Mara, and Pete, thank you all so much for listening. We have spoken.